During working out or playing almost any sport, it is likely you have felt fatigued in a way where you simply cannot continue with any more reps, or begin to struggle to keep up with the pace of the game/activity. During weightlifting and bench press, for example, at around 3 sets of 10 reps, it is likely, if you are using the correct weights, that towards the end of the 10 reps you begin to feel fatigued, especially on the last set, and reach a point where it is almost physically impossible to lift the weight bar. This is a prime example of fatigue, as it highlights the negative effects it has on performance. However, can also show how factors affect it, as some days are easier than others due to sleep and food. In order to counter this, fatigue rest is vital, hence the reason why people have breaks during sets, as it allows the 4 different types of fatigue to cool down ready for the next set. One type of fatigue is local muscle fatigue, which is where the muscle is unable to generate a force as it is limited by the muscle. This is produced through repeated contractions without recovery, like in the bench press for example, and the muscles become weak and cannot produce a strong force. Another type of fatigue is general fatigue, which can be the strain/fatigue in your muscles post-training or in the game, which causes you to feel physically or psychologically weak. There is also chronic fatigue, which can be caused through a weak immune system, causing the body to feel strenuous. Furthermore, this can be caused by overtraining and also a lack of sleep. Finally, there is psychological fatigue, which is determined by how hard you're willing to work to finish the set/race/game, which is highly important as it is in your brain. The place in which impulses is in your brain, the place in which impulses are sent to the muscles, and often causes people to give up. This can be represented as hitting the wall in a marathon, as you feel physically weak and the body is relying on the brain to carry on. During a maximal intensity short duration sport or event, the body will begin using either ATP alone or the ATP-PC system, as it supplies the energy to last around 10 seconds through the breakdown of PC stored in the muscles, attaching to the ADP, creating ATP, which then breaks down to produce energy, as it has strong bonds so energy is released. Unlike other systems, there is no waste products that are a byproduct of this, and therefore it fatigues through other ways, like the depletion of ATP or PC stores. The depletion of these would mean the body has run out of these sources of energy, and therefore would begin to fatigue, as the body is unable to produce the energy needed for muscle contraction. This could be costly in a race, as the depletion of these would lead to fatigue, which could cause you to slow down and ultimately lose the race. As a result of this, many athletes try to stop running out of ATP-PC through taking PC supplements, which adds to the PC stores in the muscles, meaning there is a higher amount of phosphocreatine, making it less likely to run out. The extent to which PC depletes can be seen in the graph showing the time, x-axis, against the PCR, y-axis, as it highlights how during exercise the PC initially decreases rapidly to approximately 1.0 from 3.0, and then steadily declines. This suggests that a high volume of PC is lost during the first 60 seconds to a very low amount, explaining why athletes fatigue very quickly during high intensity low duration events. During a moderate intensity moderate duration event, like the 400 meters or 800 meters for example, it is likely that the most dominant system will be the anaerobic lactic acid system, as despite using ATP-PC in the first 10 seconds, the majority of the race will use the glycolytic system. This is important as it provides a moderate amount of ATP at a moderate pace, allowing the runner to continue contracting their muscles throughout the race. The runner is likely wanting to have a high RER, as that would use carbs and therefore glycogen, which is a better source of energy than fats, and should last the whole race. However, the biggest disadvantage of this system originates from the byproducts of it, as it produces lactic acid. This can be seen in the OBLA graph, as it highlights how the speed increases, like it would in a race, and the blood lactate that is created as a result of this. For example, in the beginning the speed is 8 km per hour, and therefore 1.5 mmol/L is produced, whereas the speed reaches 24 km an hour, and the blood lactate rises to 4, and is continuing to rise rapidly, which is bad for the body. This is a problem as it breaks down to form lactate and hydrogen ions, and although lactate can provide energy, hydrogen ions have a relatively bad effect on the muscles, as it lowers the pH, making them more acidic and ultimately preventing the enzymes from doing their job. breaking down glycogen and therefore stopping the system from working. As this stops the system from working, the body would be unable to produce energy in a suitable way for this type of exercise, and therefore the muscles would begin fatiguing and struggling to contract. In addition, fatigue can also be caused through glycogen depletion in this system, as it stops the body from producing higher intensity movements due to the lack of glycogen. This is because glycogen is needed to be broken down into pyruvate acid. However, if there is a lack of this, it is unable to do that, and therefore the system would fail to produce the next gain of 2 ATP each time, causing there to be less energy produced for the muscle contractions. These two fatiguing factors can both be countered for either soda loading or glucose ingestion. For example, soda loading acts to neutralize the lactic acidosis in the blood to stop it from lowering the pH in the muscles. An example of this is drinking sodium bicarbonate before an event, which will act throughout the race to decrease fatigue, as stated. However, can also lead to some bad side effects, including vomiting and diarrhea. Furthermore, glucose ingestion can also be implemented before and throughout an event, which is where the sportsman or sportswoman takes glucose supplements, which allow the body to perform aerobically or anaerobically for longer, as it can be broken down into ATP. These consist of Lucozade and gels, for example, and provide added glucose for the energy. During a low-intensity hydration exercise, there are a number of fatiguing factors that can cause the body to struggle. This may be due to the prolonged process to create a substantial number of ATP that occurs during a long duration of exercise, the aerobic system, and the waste products it produces. Similarly to anaerobic exercise, the aerobic system also uses the breakdown of glycogen as a step to produce ATP, and is therefore accustomed to glycogen depletion, as without it the body is unable to complete the initial parts of the process that lead to ATP, and therefore no ATP would be created, and the body would begin to fatigue, as there is no energy for the muscles to contract. This would cause the body to begin using and breaking down fat stores, which although works would also cause fatigue, as the process to break it down is much slower than glycogen, and due to this less ATP is created. Fatigue may also occur due to heat that causes blood to be shunted to the skin surface in order to sweat and cool down, causing less blood and therefore less oxygen to reach the muscles for aerobic exercise, while also becoming dehydrated as you lose H2O during sweating. Furthermore, fatigue can also be caused through a depletion of ACH due to the all-or-nothing law, showing that if not enough ACH transports to the presynaptic membrane from the postsynaptic membrane, the impulse will stop and no contraction will occur. In addition to this, excess ACH can also have a fatiguing effect on the muscles due to the enzyme chyliesterase, which breaks down the ACH, may not being able to handle the high levels of ACH if there is not enough of the enzyme, stopping the body from sending impulses to the muscles. This could be for both excess ACH or a lack of cholinesterase during a marathon, for example. Initially the body uses carbs and therefore has a high RER, as glucose that's broken down as its main source of energy. However, if there is a depletion of this, the body would begin using fats as a source of energy, which is less good for the body, and often where you see marathon runners hit the wall. There are many ways of limiting fatigue during a high duration activity, for example, glycogen/carbo loading, which can be seen in the graph in the PowerPoint, showing the week leading up to a marathon. As you can see, in the beginning of the week the body has little carbohydrates, and therefore glycogen, due to the athlete not intaking high levels of carbs, while also exercising, causing the body to break down glycogen and carbo deplete. However, to reduce fatigue in the 3 days before the athlete runs, it can be seen that they carbo load and do not exercise in order to increase their glycogen levels to a very high amount, so that it can be broken down multiple times throughout the race. Pre-cooling is also seen to have an effect of the rate of fatigue, as can be seen in the table above, which shows the time against the temperature of the body/skin and highlights how if pre-cooled your temperature would remain lower. This is very useful as it allows less blood to be shunted to the skin to cool the body down, and instead go to the muscles to allow them to keep contracting with oxygen. Also, fatigue can be caused through a lack of calcium ions, as the impulses would become slower with less ions to polarize, and therefore the neuromuscular system would become slower. Similarly to moderate intensity events, glucose ingestion also helps stop fatigue, as it can be broken down into ATP and allow the athlete to work for longer.